Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Robert Delaney.
And what rank were you in? What grade or?
Captain, United States Navy.
For how long?
I was in the Navy 39 years.
39 years.
Yes. I joined the Navy when I was 17 years old in World War II. And I left 39 years later.
39 years. Were you in high school or did you just graduate?
Just graduated. Yep.
So you didn't go on to college?
Not then.
Not then.
I went on to college while I was in the Navy by sheer luck.
Sherlock. Okay. Did you have a serial number or anything?
Oh, sure.
Yeah? Do you remember?
No.
No? That's okay.
So, tell us a little about your family, like your wife. Did you have kids? Anything like that?
Well, it started with I am the fifth generation who served in the Navy. Thank God. And I have a daughter who's in the Navy now. And I have a son who didn't want to go in the Navy.
All right, we're recording. Okay. Let's see. Where did you grow up? Where are you from? Where's your hometown?
My hometown is Fall River, Massachusetts.
That's where I'm from. Well, I'm from Littleton, Massachusetts.
Oh, God.
That's awesome.
I fled. I joined the Navy because my father had died. It was during the Depression, and the war was on. And so this was a way out. And thank God.
What was your branch of service, and did you enlist or were you drafted?
No, I wouldn't be drafted.
No.
I consider that awful. When your country's in trouble, you fight for it, period. That's it. So I joined in what they called in those days a minority hitch. And it was until I'd stay in until I was 21. And I went to boot camp, and I went on to signalman school. And while I was in signalman school, and you listen to this, the biggest break in my life came. I went to boot camp in Newport, Rhode Island. In those days, 400,000 sailors and Marines were stationed in Newport, which is on the island. And so in order to keep peace, they would take people like us who were in the service schools and call us for the weekend as cops, shore patrol, because there were 450 of us. And there were cops who had been drafted who would take us if there was a riot. And there was a riot. And I was the first one off the wagon. And I went through this would have been in July 1943.
Is that when you started into the Army, 1943? Navy, sorry.
Yes. And I was the first one through the bar door.
Wow.
And the last thing I knew, for 3 days, I got creamed. Some guy hit me with a bar spoon. You say, wow. No, thank God.
Really?
Yeah. Because I woke up the following Monday, and a chief petty officer came in, and he said, "How many of you dumb bastards can read and write?" Now, this was 1943. A lot of people in 1943 could not read and write, particularly Southerners. Well, I put my hand up, and they took my service number and said, "We'll be back in touch." 2 days went by, another chief came in, and the chief said, looked at us and said, You are a bunch of lucky bastards. Those of you who can read and write, put your hands up. Put the hands up. They looked at the piece of paper they had. Checked it off and said, okay, you're going to be transferred. To what? I said. And the chief said, shut up. And you know what happened? There were 12 of us. And they said, okay, here are your new orders. You'll move out of here in 3 days. And he said, okay, Delaney, you're going to Dartmouth College for 1 year. Do you know what that meant? My mother was a widow. My father was dead. My mother worked on WPA in the Depression. We were in the Depression. And I was going to an Ivy League college. Just never stopped. I went to Dartmouth for a year, and they said, you got all A's.
Wow. That's awesome.
Now we're going to send you to what we call nowadays school, where you go to school and you get a degree and you get commissioned.
Howdy.
Howdy.
I was asked to come into the bar.
Oh, yes. How are you?
Are these the people from the high school?
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
I was just asked to come down here. I wasn't told to do anything. May I sit down?
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Sure.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
He's a very famous man.
What's
This
that?
man.
No, you're the famous one.
Yeah, we asked for you to come down and we just started talking to him and stuff. But
We'll interview you and him.
you can pull up and we can have like a little 4-person chat.
Oh, these people are with you?
They are, but how are we gonna do this?
Or I think we should probably.
Yeah.
I'm going to push back.
Yeah. No, just scoot together.
Man, I haven't seen women like this in years.
So maybe if you came and sat like right here.
Okay.
Do you need help?
Not at the moment. I want to see what's in the envelope.
Oh.
I was handed an envelope.
Oh, she said that was a thank you for coming down.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You know what it is?
So,
We just-
let's see. What were your duties in the war?
Okay, well, I was commissioned out of the College of the Holy Cross as an ensign, but I had a problem with my hearing. They commissioned me because I signed a thing that said I'd go wherever they sent me. And they sent me to 101st Airborne. I'm in the Navy now. 101st Airborne, jumpers. I went to jump school, and coincidentally enough, the guy who taught me to jump out of airplanes, and in my time, pushed me out of an airplane because I was terrified. He lives here.
Really?
I see him at the Legion.
Wow. That's ironic.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's funny.
And, well, anyway, there were 100 of us. And when we finished jump school, we got on a Navy aircraft, and we went down to Brazil. And we went from Brazil to Africa, to Egypt, to India.
Okay.
Turned over to the Brits, and they taught us something about guerrilla warfare. And we still didn't know what we were supposed to do. And what we were supposed to do turned out to be, we were watchers. We were dropped, my group, 50 of us, were dropped into South China. And we were to look at the ships and send twice a day information as to their location to our submarines, and then they'd sink them. and then we'd run like hell because we were there. There were 10 Marines, 50 of us, and a bunch of Chinese who were less than helpful. And that's what I did until, I guess it was July of 1945. And then a message came from Pearl Harbor saying all ensigns, date of rank 1 January 1945, report to Shanghai for reassignment. And the reason for that was so many of the ensigns were being killed in the Battle of Okinawa. And so we were going to be put on ships, which is what we've been trained for. And I went to the USS Duncan, and in the process, the man who picked us all up in Shanghai later became the Chief of Naval Operations. And his first question to me was, "Do you see any white Russians around here?" And I said, "No, all we did was size up the ships, let the fleet know, and run like hell." No, I didn't see any white Russians. And he loved white Russians. I don't know where the hell he got the idea, because I had never seen a white Russian. Well, anyway, we became friendly. That man became the Chief of Naval Operations. And now we're into the 1940s, and I was in graduate school, and he found me and said, "I want you to come back on active duty and be in my committee." Another great piece of luck. And it turned out he had married a white Russian.
Wow.
And it was just incredible. Well, that's the way my life went. Then I became a spy.
You became a spy?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was a spy for a long, long time.
What did you do when you were a spy? Like, what kind of...
Can't say.
Okay. Oh, it's one of those kind of spies. All right.
Confidential. Did you, in the end, receive any awards or medals?
Yeah.
Talk about some of those.
Well, in the Korean War, I was assigned as an intelligence officer with the British in Malaya. And that was a great experience to me. I learned a lot. The Brits are a hell of a lot smarter than we are when it comes to nasty warfare. They don't fool around. In any event, that was a big thing, because then I was assigned to the embassy in Rome, and
You've been all over.
I've been all over. And because I'm a Catholic, I'd always gone to Catholic schools all my life. And the President Truman had just been told by the Baptists that they did not want the United States to have diplomatic relations with the Vatican. And I was in Rome as a result of an exploit. My wife, my daughter, who was killed in it, was shot, not shot down, but blown up in a plane. And my wife and I were the only survivors. So we were stationed in Rome. And when this word from Truman says, send some guy who's gone to Catholic schools to the Vatican and have him stationed there, I got the job.
Wow.
And it was great, 2 years. Now, this present bishop here, he had a somewhat similar experience. He decided to become a priest when he was 52 years old. And I said to myself, whoa, that ain't the way it works. But there he is. Anyway, from Rome, I was reassigned to NATO South, Naples. And I was there with the guy who became the head of the CIA. I was his aide. And he said, okay, here's what I want you to do. And I can't tell you. But that was the beginning. And I did that for many years. In Hungary, in Asia, in Latin America. And all my kids were born abroad. Oh, I got something for you.
What is going on here?
We're having a little interview
For a veteran.
for our school. Our teacher wanted us to interview a veteran, so we are kind of interviewing like two.
He's one.
Are you?
How come you picked him for a veteran? He was in the Navy.
He just showed up and wanted to talk. So, do you want to join our little circle?
Oh,
Come on, come on. Oh.
no, I have to go see Cheryl if she's still here.
Oh, okay.
But I couldn't figure out what was going on when I saw this thing. Have fun. Sorry I didn't interrupt.
I'm
Okay,
going to bring
it's
you
fine.
something from the yacht club.
Oh,
I'll bring
really?
it in tomorrow.
Too expensive for me to join.
Oh, come on.
Take care.
Well, anyway, I had jobs in Washington, all over the place. And eventually ended up as Chief of Intelligence in U.S. Information Agency. And then I retired as a Navy captain. And here I am.
How's life been since the war, since you've been out of work?
Well,
You bored?
I still work for the Navy.
You do?
And that keeps me out of trouble.
That's great. Thank you for sharing your story.
And I married, eventually, after my first one, I married a Navy nurse.
Wow.
And this probably should be off the record, but I was shot in Vietnam. And when I woke up, I was on my stomach, and there was this nurse looking at me. And she said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I don't know. Am I going to live?" She said, "Oh yeah, you're going to live." And she laughed. And I said, "What's my problem?" And she said, "You got shot." I was in the plane. And I said, "It feels funny. I don't. Where was I shot?" And she laughed. And I said, "Tell me where I was shot." She said, "In the rear end."
Oh my gosh.
And I married her.
Aww.
What a catch!
You should see how impressive he looks in his dress whites with a whole chest full of ribbons.
Thank you.
You are very.
So, my wife was a hero.
Yeah.
In the first Gulf War, she got a Purple Heart and the Navy Cross.
Wow.
I know what you call them nowadays. The Arabs came charging across the field. This was in 1980. The doctor in charge of the unit was a pain in the ass. Constantly talking to Senator, whatever his name was, from Kansas. "Get me out of here! Get me out of here! They're trying to kill me." What the hell do you think a war's about? And he fainted.
Oh.
Here they come. Here comes the Arabs. There she was. She got all the women, all the nurses, all the the enlisted people. And she said, all right, when they come over this hill, we're charging them. And she charged them. And the Irish were so terrified when they saw 120 women coming over the hill.
Wow. That's
Knives
courage.
and everything.
Fighter.
Yeah, she was. Anyway, so that's it.
Well, I think that's a pretty good story. I think that's a pretty good history.
It's great.
It sounds great.
Sounds very
So we were lucky enough to be able to hear from two people. So would you like to tell us a little about yourself? Just state your
Okay,
name.
I was from a different school,
Mhm.
and we were taught that anybody who would jump from a perfectly good airplane had to be nuts.
Yes,
And
you're
that's-
absolutely right.
So, my name is Frank Drab, and I was drafted into the Air Corps. I had worked for Republic Aviation when the war broke out, and
That's War II.
World War II. And one of the jobs I did was to put the skin, the outside covering, on the plane so that it could be riveted onto the stringers. And each time we put a piece on, we had to use a big crayon, a dark crayon, and would put our initials on there so that the inspectors during the night would know who did that job, and if it was messed up, they knew who to blame for it. So anyhow, that's how come my initials got onto the inside of fighter planes. Story coming up. I was drafted, as I said, from Republic Aviation into the Air Force. I wanted to do something flying, and so I qualified as an aerial gunner. I did get into the Air Force. I took my basic training at Atlantic City, actually in the what is presently the gambling joint of the Hotel Claridge. And I had it rough in the Air Corps. We had clean sheets and pillowcases. We had fresh, hot and cold running water in our tubs and showers. We had Glenn Miller's orchestra playing for us in the mess hall almost every night. You young people don't know who Glenn Miller was, but he was the idol of us during that period.
How about Dean Martin?
Huh?
How about Dean Martin?
Yeah, Dean Martin was another one. He was a better idol because he always had that glass in his hand.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I had put in 3 years while I was in the service, 3 years and 1 day. I trained as an aerial gunner. I then became an aerial gunner instructor. And I was an aerial gunner instructor here in Panama City, Florida. And then from here, I put in for combat duty. And so they put me over in New Guinea as a gunnery instructor.
She usually sits
Where there
over
I
there,
used,
but
that's where we helped
her chair by
the
door.
crews come over, and we gave them a quick brush up of what was going on in the air. And then after 2 years of that, I again put in for combat, and I was finally sent up to the Philippines, where I joined a crew who was short an aerial gunner, and I flew with them for the next 20 missions over Japan as an aerial gunner. And so, as I said, I put in 20 missions as an aerial gunner. I knock on anything. I never got a scratch. I was lucky never to get a scratch, but our plane was hit numerous times, and numerous of the crew got injured. But as I said, I never got hit. I don't have a Purple Heart or anything like that. But I had a very an interesting 3 years in the service. The service was good to me. I was as I said, a lowly.
Okay, I guess you're going to have to sit here.
A lowly enlisted man, not like the captain over here. And but I had a very good period of time, and had good experiences as an instructor. And one time when I was in New Guinea, I was going around taking photographs in the junkyard. We used to paint pictures. We used to name the planes, and they used to paint on the planes pictures of different things, and it's called nose art. And I was looking in through the junkyard taking photographs, and I found an old P-47. I stuck my head in there, and what do you know? Lo and behold, there was my initials up on the inside of the wrecked plane. And it had followed me all the way over to the Guinea. But the P-47 was a great plane. It was behind our protection of our different squadrons as we flew missions.
Wow.
And,
How old were you when you went to the war?
probably 19.
So did you graduate high school?
I had graduated high school.
Didn't go to college?
I had started college in September. The war broke out in January 7th, December 7th. And so I quit college immediately.
Where did you go to college?
I started at the, it's now the New York State Institute on Long Island, Farmingdale.
Is that where you're from? Your hometown?
No, I'm from a little town further out called East Iceland. And that's about 45 miles from the city itself. And as I said, I started college there. I studied horticulture. I lived on I grew up on a large private estate, 2,000-acre private estate, where my dad was the assistant superintendent. When I came back from the war, I went back to school, finished up. My first job happened to be in a nursery up in Westchester County, New York. And at the same time, some girl had graduated from Cornell University, also in landscape design, which I specialized in. And we've been together ever since. Now, if you add the age of everybody in this room here together, it probably wouldn't add up to the 64 years we've been married. And I think she's in the room here, I'm not sure, but...
How are you? Do you have any kids together?
We have 4 children, yes ma'am. Yeah. One in New Jersey, a school teacher. One in Virginia, a professor in Roanoke College. One in California, an entrepreneur and real estate agent. And we have a handicapped son who lives here in Sarasota by himself.
Wow.
So we have the 4 children.
Very nice.
God bless you.
Well, thank you, sir. God bless you.
How's your life's been good after war? What is something that you've taken from war, like something that is within you thanks to the
Well, I think
experience?
I learned to be able to have a big mouth.
To have a big mouth.
To wreck people. I've been able, because it came to the point where I was forced to do that. The first day I was back from being in instructor school, I along with another guy who had just gone through instructor school, had been put in charge of 120 men. And as we were marching back to the barracks, they made a complete ass of us 2 guys. And so when it was all over, we had to get them back into order and take them and tell them just what we would do if they didn't do what we wanted them to do. You learn fast when you get 120 men dropped on you, and anybody who's been in charge of anything. And I've learned to direct things, I believe, because of my experience. So, yes.
So what are you doing, like, currently? How are you now?
How am I now?
Like him, he made it very clear he's very bored.
He's bored.
So,
well, I'm keeping busy. I've written book about the 3 years I was in research.
You wrote a book. Wow.
And my wife and I think that's my wife sitting over there. I don't know if that's her or not.
You don't know.
I mean, I'm blind.
Really?
Yes, I'm legally blind. I have macular degeneration, which is age-related, and it comes to all those who wait around long enough. So there's a white cane, and that's what that means. So I can't tell what's there. And if I see you 5 minutes from now out in the hall, I won't know who you are.
No.
Well, maybe I can remember a big pigtail. Yeah, I can see that. You do have a big pigtail.
Yeah.
Okay. I keep active. I just spent 6 weeks up in Birmingham, Alabama, at a VA school where there is a floor dedicated to visually handicapped servicemen to learn different programs that are available. And so I have a program in my computer called Dragon, Naturally Speaking, and I can talk into it, and it'll transfer my voice to the printed matter on the screen, which then by the hit of P, it'll print it. So that's how I get that stuff done. I can send letters, emails, stuff like that by that program in the computer. So I do all of that, and that keeps me good. That's where I just started to sit down. We had friends over for dinner here today, and I had just started to sit down at the computer when Gail called me and asked me to come down, and so you could interview me.
Well, thank you very much.
really appreciate
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you guys for sharing your
Not at all.
stories.
I'm appreciative of that there are people like yourself who are a little bit interested in knowing that it really happened.
Yes.
I know my kids, this book that I put together, some of my grandchildren called out, Grandpa, you really did that?
Yeah.
You know? And so,
It's
a lot of
heroic.
people find it very difficult to imagine the things that people have. And there was don't forget, there was 17 million of us. So that means 17 million individual stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, some were like this gentleman here had so many different things, and others would just stayed and worked the officer's bar, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they're 3 or 4 years in the service. The officers didn't have their own bars. But,
language would come in handy.
when I was stationed here in Florida, in Panama City, just right behind my barracks was the enlisted men's beer bar. And we all had it pretty good at times, when, you know, and there's a heck of a lot of us that had it bad. But for 50 cents, you could get a pitcher of beer under umbrellas, you know, under tables with umbrellas in the enlisted men's beer bar. So there we had movies every night. There was movies in the Post Theater. And generally speaking, the towns were not good for the enlisted men.
Musical chairs and spin the
The officers, unfortunately, the officers took charge of the good-looking chicks in town. They won't admit to that. Am I correct, sir? Am I saying
No
something out of
comment.
line? No comment.
No
Oh, please. So you got. Who are those 2 people that are sitting?
Those are our friends.
Oh, they came to help us. After this, we're gonna like edit the video and
Oh,
put it all together.
okay. Any direct questions?
Tiddlywinks,
Oh.
pick up sticks and things like that. Yeah.
I flew in a B-24, which had a crew of 4 officers and 6 enlisted men.
Monopoly was
6 of us were
popular.
gunners, but each of the gunners had a different job. One was the radio man, one was the engineer. I was the armorer, which meant that the bombs were put in a plane. They couldn't explode on their own. They had to have a detonator put into them. And so I was given an apron full of detonators. And these were about the size of a whole paper towel, just a 5-foot tube. And that you took a plug out of the front of the bomb, and you screw this into the bomb, and then you set it for the amount that you wanted to. You could set them to go off on detonation, or you could set it to go off at a certain altitude above the ground. For instance, if you wanted to go off at 100 feet above the ground, you could have it set for that. Or you could set them to detonate when it hit the ground. So that was my job. Another guy was the radio man. As I said, the engineer.
Here's something that might interest you because it has a kickback to the present day. Today on the tube, there was a series of news reports about Guantanamo and what they do and don't do to get information from captive Muslims. When I went to school to learn how to interrogate the enemy, whoever it might be, I was astonished. Being a good Catholic altar boy, what they told me. Sergeant, Army Sergeant, came in. You know, this was an Army school. Talk to the enemy. Here's how you do it. Think of this. It's 1945. You say, good morning, how are you today? What is your service number? Right? Sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't. You say, would you please give us your service number? No. He says, here's what you do if they say no. He took a 45 out of his holster, turned it around, and had it by the back. And he said, now I'll ask you one more time. He asked him one more time. No.
It's 4 o'clock.
No more teeth. You know when you're in a war is a war.
I'll talk to you later.
We're in 3 wars now. And we don't know what the hell to do about it. And you get these people,
I'll talk to you later.
God love them.
Very
They're
interesting.
fighting for their country. I'm fighting for mine. You're fighting for yours. They don't want to talk. Tough luck, Charlie. You don't have any teeth. And that's the thing we're facing right now.
I had lunch today with a good friend of mine who does a video in town here. But Bob was taking POW in the airplane was shot down ballistic. And he was captured in the POW camp. And he started, he was being interviewed by a Luftwaffe pilot. So the pilot came in and said, give me your name, rank, and what have you, what outfit you're from, and all this question. He gave his name, his rank, and serial number. Those are the 3 things I was doing. And this went on for 20 minutes, a half hour. So finally this German pilot said to him, he says, oh, come on now, Bob, let's cut out this crap. He says, your name is Bob Francis. You were born and raised in the central part of New Jersey. Your outfit is number so-and-so, so-and-so. He knew everything there was to know about him, the squadron, and everything else. I mean, they were around us. You say you were a spy. we had Japanese spies around us all the time. And so they knew where we were going to bomb before we did.
We were and still are naive in this area. Because we weren't
We were brought up
brought up that way.
to be critical.
Yeah.
Well, that's what.
Thank you very much.
We
for
really
sharing your
appreciate this,
stories.
and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for doing everything you did for our
Yes.
country. It's
Ben
amazing.
and
Don't thank us. We did it because we wanted to.
We wanted to.
Yeah.
That's
It's
how.
amazing.
And, you believed it was the right thing.
Yes.
You believed it was the
All
right thing.
right.
That the country was behind us.
Where's your wife at?
And they were.
She'll be along momentarily.
In fact, that fellow that just-
And how are
I
you
think
all
it's-
today?
Good.
We're-
Young lady